After 14 years, the alpha finally found his Luna. Now he must fight to keep her, a werewolf romance audiobook written by Lyra Blake. Prologue. At 32, Alpha Alex has nearly surrendered to the crushing truth. His fated mate may never exist. Then, one reckless night in Las Vegas, fate hits him like a lightning strike. She's perfect. She's his. But there's a catch big enough to shatter his world. She's human. She has no idea werewolves are real. And even less idea that her soul is bound to his. Alex swears he won't lose her, not after waiting his whole life. But in the shadows of the pack, enemies are watching. Some would rather see her gone, or dead, than see their alpha claim a human Luna. And they're willing to spill blood to keep them apart. Chapter 1. As he looked over at the clock on the wall, he couldn't help but let out a loud sigh, knowing that it was time to go. He glanced over at his beta, Jake, and pouted pleadingly at him. "You have to protect me tonight," he said. Jake let out a loud laugh and shook his head. "I'm here to party. You'll have to face down the hordes of admirers on your own." Same as previous years. He glared at Jake. "If you're not careful, I'll choose Rain as my Luna just to spite you." That stopped Jake's laughing immediately, but after a moment of scrutiny, Jake slowly smiled again. "Nah, you wouldn't do that to the pack." He let out another long sigh because Jake was right. As much as he was desperate for a partner to come home to and a Luna for his pack, he knew he would rather be alone than be subjected to life with Rain Lauder. She wasn't just shallow and self-centered, she was a downright mean bitch. To everyone. To her, everyone was her slave to command and bully as she saw fit, and she seemed to enjoy upsetting other people simply for fun. While she latched herself onto him every chance she got, purring in his ear in the most nauseating way, he had witnessed her screaming blue murder in people's faces and literally stamping her foot like a child to get her way. He had even had to step in once when she struck an omega for no apparent reason. She had never done that in front of him again after seeing his strong disapproval, but he knew it still happened when he wasn't there. Her father, Alpha Ray, was in charge of the second biggest pack in America after his own. Although not as bad as his daughter, he still didn't much like the man. However, their uneasy alliance had held strong for over 10 years now. So he made nice whenever they had to meet at these sorts of things. Alpha Ray too kept pushing for him to take Rain as his Luna. The pair of them were one of the main reasons he hated these gatherings, but there were plenty of others pushing themselves forward, and holding them off for the next week was going to be exhausting. Unfortunately, attendance wasn't optional. The rest of the week would be full of meetings, both formal and informal, to make agreements, solve disputes, and discuss any issues affecting werewolves across the globe. But tonight would be the worst. It was the opening night ball, and business was strictly prohibited. It was all about socializing and building friendships, which to the single she-wolves and their pushy parents meant targeting him relentlessly in the hopes this would be the year he gave in. Truthfully, he was starting to wonder whether he should give up and accept one of the she-wolves offering themselves. He was 32, and honestly, he was lonely. The long-held hope of finding his mate was beginning to fade. He had waited and waited. He had attended every wolf social event he could in the hopes that she would be there, and still nothing. He hadn't been too concerned at the beginning. Whilst most wolves found their mates when they turned 18, not all did. It was clear his mate wasn't a member of his own pack, so he had gone to the American Mate Social, hoping to find her there. Then he had gone to the Worlds, but still nothing. Perhaps his mate was younger than him and wasn't attending yet, he reasoned. So he attended again the following year, and then the year after that. Every year he still attended, although at this point it was beginning to get a little embarrassing, and he was starting to have to accept that maybe he didn't have a true mate at all. His wolf, Firens, let out a whimper at this line of thinking. Firens still held out hope, even if his own was beginning to fade. Pushing these thoughts aside, he stood and moved over to the mirror to check his appearance. Smoothing out the crisp white shirt and buttoning the jacket of his black suit, he smoothed his short dark brown hair one last time before turning to Jake. Let's get this over with. Chapter 2. It had been 37 minutes, and in that time he had looked at his watch a grand total of 18 times. He swore they were in some sort of time vortex where minutes were actually hours. It sure felt like it, anyway. On his left, Crystal clung to his arm, while on his right, Sandy was telling him some very long-winded story about how she couldn't find any shoes to match her dress. In front of him stood her mother, who not so subtly kept nudging her closer to him. He tried to put on a somewhat interested face and kept occasionally nodding as he sipped his glass of champagne. Every year, it was torture, but somehow this year felt worse. Since turning 30, his lack of a mate had been affecting him more and more. The loneliness was becoming more consuming and harder to brush off. It was like a blackness gnawing away at his heart, and he couldn't seem to stop it, no matter how much of a brave face he put on for others. Although deep in his own dark thoughts, he was still fully aware the moment she entered the room, her shrill voice like nails stabbing into his consciousness. He glanced toward the door, where she stood in an ultra-revealing red dress, clinging to her father's arm and scanning the room with eagle eyes. Knowing she was searching for him, he quickly turned his back, excused himself rather abruptly from Crystal, Sandy, and her mother, and fled the room. Cowardly, he knew, but he just couldn't handle Rain right now. He needed a break. Exiting the ballroom, he strode across the lobby with purpose and slipped into the casino opposite. It was still early in the ball, so no other wolves were there at the moment, though later he knew many of them would make their way in. It was one of the reasons why their annual gathering was always held in Vegas. Work hard, play hard was definitely the motto for the week. Days filled with meetings, nights with gambling and drinking. It didn't hurt that he owned 4 of the main hotels and casinos on the Strip, so it was good for business, really. Still, the casino was fairly full with human patrons having their own fun. He wandered aimlessly among them, enjoying being anonymous for a time, but another glance at his watch signaled that he really should return. Just as he turned to leave, he caught the faintest whiff of something, and instantly his wolf, Firens, was on high alert. Slowly, he turned back around and sniffed again. It was faint, very faint, but it smelled incredible. Like strawberries mixed with roses, mixed with something else he couldn't quite put his finger on. Firens began leaping around in excitement inside his head, but he remained frozen to the spot. It couldn't be. After all this time, trying desperately not to get his hopes up, he took a slow step forward and sniffed again. Heart pounding, palms sweaty, mouth dry, he followed the faint trail of heaven through the casino. As the scent grew stronger, he knew he was getting closer, and hope bloomed in his chest like a brilliant sunflower. He followed the path out of the casino and into the nightclub next door, bypassing the bouncers who recognized him instantly as their boss and let him through without a word. She was here. She was definitely here. The club wasn't too full yet, and as he quickly scanned the room, his eyes locked onto the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. Sitting in a booth with 4 others, laughing with a cocktail in hand, he came to a stunned standstill. With utter glee, Firens let out the one word he had been too scared to say when he first smelled her. Mate. 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 He had found her. After all this time, he had found her. Chapter 3. His first instinct was to simply run up to her and hug her. He wanted to hold her and never let her go. He felt like crying with joy. But as he took several more steps toward her, he realized something else. She was human. It wasn't unheard of for wolves to be mated with humans, but it was rare, and whilst it didn't bother him in the slightest, it did complicate matters. She wouldn't feel the mate bond as he did. She wouldn't even know what a mate was. If he just walked up to her and grabbed her, she'd think he was some crazy guy trying to assault her. It was so hard after 14 years of searching. But somehow he forced himself to casually slip onto a bar stool still several feet away from her, while he contemplated exactly how to approach without seeming like a creep. Like magic, a beer appeared in front of him, the bartenders not needing to ask for his order as he was their boss. For a moment, he just took a few deep breaths, drinking in her intoxicating smell. He was still somewhat in shock that she was right there, his mate. Firens was purring with pride at the sight of her. She was gorgeous. Long, wavy dark brown hair, tan skin, 5'5" with curves in all the right places. She wore a pale blue dress that hugged her body down to just above her knees and gold strappy heels. He memorized every detail, not wanting to forget this moment. As he watched, 3 more women approached the table and all the girls, including his mate, rose to greet them with smiles and hugs. They were clearly on some sort of girls' night out, as a waiter approached with several more pitchers of colorful cocktails. The girls all refreshed their glasses before toasting each other. He watched as his girl laughed at something one of her friends said, her whole face lighting up. His heart did a funny sort of stutter and squeeze. His sly observations of his newfound mate were suddenly interrupted by a voice in his head. Alpha, where are you? I know the she-wolves have all got their claws out, but you can't just run and hide. People keep asking where you are, and dinner's about to be served. He mind-linked Jake straight back. I'm at the bar in Oasis. I need your help with something. Now, you're not coming back to the ball. I know I joked earlier, but I'll protect you from the crazies if you need. There was no way he was letting his girl out of his sight now that he had found her. I'm not coming back. Something far more important is going on. Just get over here and I'll explain. Okay, Jake grumbled, although his curiosity was clear. Be subtle though. The last thing I need is anyone following you to find me. Yes, sir. Only a few minutes later, Jake slid onto the bar stool next to him, temporarily blocking his view of his mate and causing Firens to let out a low grumble. Instantly, he shifted slightly so that she was still in his peripheral vision. He had this unfounded fear that this was all some hallucination and she would vanish like a dream the moment he blinked. So, what's the emergency? Jake asked. He took a deep breath. Somehow, saying it out loud felt like such a big step. I found my mate. Jake's mouth dropped open in shock, and he was stunned into silence for a good 30 seconds before finding his voice. What? Are you serious? That's amazing. Congrats. Where is she? Who is she? Why are you just sat here at this bar all alone? His tone went from surprised to elated to confused as he reeled off his questions. She's in the booth behind you with a bunch of friends. And oh, don't turn around, you idiot. You'll make it obvious we're looking at her. Jake stopped trying to turn around, but still stared at him in confusion. I don't get it. Why is she there and you're here? I haven't approached her yet. She's human. Oh, Jake said, understanding dawning. Yep, he said simply. Just trying to figure out how to approach this. I have all these crazy emotions going on, and Firens is leaping about, but I don't want to scare her away by being too intense. I know she won't be feeling any of this. Jake nodded. Yeah, this is definitely going to be tricky, but totally amazing. He added with a grin, I can't believe you found her. I'm so happy for you, bro. And before he knew it, Jake was pulling him in for a hug. Jake gave one extra squeeze before letting go. You totally deserve this. He couldn't help but grin back, but then he tensed as he noticed his mate getting up from her table. She walked right by his seat, and he briefly panicked, thinking she was leaving, but breathed a sigh of relief when he saw her making her way to the restroom. Jake watched his eyes following her and smiled. I guess that's her, she's pretty. I say now's your chance. Just casually bump into her when she's coming back. Offer to buy her a drink. What should I say? Jake just laughed. Man, I've never seen you this nervous. Well, it's kinda a big deal, he growled. I don't want to fuck it up. Just start with hi and take it from there. He rolled his eyes at this oh-so-helpful advice. The restroom door opened, and his girl started to head back this way. Taking a deep breath, he stood up. Here went nothing. Chapter 4. Emily's heel caught on something, and she stumbled slightly, only to be steadied by a pair of large hands seemingly appearing from nowhere. Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry, she began, looking up at the man who had caught her, only for her sentence to trail off as she stared at the most handsome man she had ever seen in her life. Over 6 feet tall, with short, dark brown curly hair, a chiseled face, and broad, muscular arms contained within a fitted black suit. Not to mention the most gorgeous green eyes shining brightly down at her. Realizing she was staring at him with her mouth hanging open, she quickly snapped it shut. "Are you okay?" the gorgeous man asked, his voice like honey, melting her all over. He still hadn't let go of her, which wasn't helping her recover her jumbled thoughts. Yes, thanks, sorry." He smiled warmly down at her, and she felt her heart do a strange stutter and squeeze. "No problem, anytime." Actually, I was coming over to talk to you anyway," he admitted rather bashfully, a hint of blush lighting up his cheeks. Emily stared at him in surprise. He had been coming to see her? "I'm Alex." He held out his hand, and she took it, replying automatically, "Emily." "Emily," he murmured as though her name were some kind of special, magical word instead of the bog-standard English name it was. His thumb gently stroked across the back of her hand, sending shivers down her spine and tingles across her skin. "It's really nice to meet you, Emily. Please, can I buy you a drink?" She couldn't help but stutter, unable to find any real words to say. Geez, what was wrong with her? She was totally mesmerized by this guy. "I'm with my friends," she began, glancing over at them, only to see 7 pairs of eyes all staring at her with gleeful smiles. Upon catching her eye, there was a mad combination of nods, eyebrow-raising, pointing, thumbs up, and get-in gestures. Turning back to Mr. Gorgeous, Alex, as his actual name was, who still had a soft hold of her hand, she changed the ending to her original sentence. "But sure, a drink sounds nice." The beaming smile her answer was greeted with had her heart doing further acrobatics. He also seemed a bit relieved, some untold tension escaping him as she agreed to join him. "Great," he said, gesturing toward an open booth that was still within sight of her friends, making her feel a little more comfortable. She was aware of their ogling eyes following them as Alex slipped into the seat opposite her. She still couldn't believe this overwhelmingly handsome man had asked her for a drink, but it settled her somewhat that he seemed just as nervous as she was. A waiter arrived almost instantly, and Alex turned to her. "What would you like?" "A pink gin and lemonade, please," she said, going for her standard order and not overthinking it. The waiter nodded and turned away without bothering to ask Alex what he wanted. At her confused expression, Alex explained, "They know me here. Jamie knows what I like already." I guess that explains the quick service too," she said as Jamie reappeared already with her drink and a beer for Alex. "So," Alex began, "tell me about you. I want to know everything. Your accent sounds British." She laughed. "Yes, I'm from Surrey in England. I'm here for a hen do and then a Vegas wedding later in the week." His smile dropped slightly. "You're only here for a week?" "Well, in Vegas for a week, but in the US for another 5 weeks after that. I'm hiring a car and just planning on road tripping it across the states." "Wow, that sounds great. Have you been to the US before?" "I did a long weekend in New York a few years ago with an ex. But that's it. I'm so excited to explore more of it." For the next 2 hours, Alex and Emily talked effortlessly. He hung on every word she said, asking insightful questions, but also making her laugh with stories of his own. She felt like she had known him forever rather than just one evening. Everything felt so natural. It was clear he was feeling more comfortable too as they chatted about everything and anything. Somehow they covered family and friends, jobs and favorite foods, books and movies, and dreams for the future, where he rather bashfully admitted that he hoped for marriage and kids. And she, rather embarrassingly, immediately pictured herself in the role. The club was now absolutely heaving with people, and the music was pumping loudly when Alex offered up his hand and asked her to dance. Emily was still feeling giddy from being around this gorgeous guy, and as he pulled her closer, wrapping his hands around her waist and starting to sway to the beat, the tingles all over her skin exploded into goosebumps. The whole evening had felt like a perfect dream. She just hoped she wouldn't wake up. Chapter 5. Alex was completely mesmerized by Emily's crystal blue eyes, and it seemed she felt the same way because neither of them was able to look away. With a shy look, She reached up and wrapped her hands loosely around his neck. He felt her soft fingers start to play with the curls at the nape of his neck, and it was like electricity fizzing through him. He didn't think he had ever been this happy in his whole entire life. She was amazing, smart and funny, totally charming without even realizing it. A little shy and quiet at first, she had quickly relaxed, and the last few hours had been perfect. Everything felt so natural with her. This was what he had been waiting for, and she was worth the wait. The only slight sticking point was that she lived in England. He tried not to think about that. After 14 years of not having her in his life, the distance seemed like a minor inconvenience. Alex wasn't sure how long they danced, but they were suddenly interrupted by her friends, who had come to tell her they were going to bed. They had only arrived that morning and were staying up to get onto local time as quickly as possible. So it was no wonder they were tired. Emily seemed reluctant to leave, but with a smile, said she was going with them. He could instantly hear Firen's protest, and truth be told, he didn't want to release her either. But this wasn't about what he wanted. He wanted to earn her trust and respect long term. Bending to whisper in her ear, Alex asked for her phone number and if he could call her tomorrow. She nodded and pulled out her phone as he did the same. After swapping digits, there was an awkward pause as he tried to figure out the appropriate way to say goodbye. It didn't help that her friends were all still standing there. He settled for a hug and a soft kiss on her cheek, lingering only slightly longer than he should. "Meeting you has just made my life," he whispered in her ear before thinking that he probably shouldn't have said that. But her answering smile reassured him it wasn't too much. "I can't wait to see you tomorrow," she whispered before disappearing into the crowd. For a moment, Alex just stood there, stunned. He couldn't wipe the smile from his face. He quickly mind-linked Jake to find out where he was after leaving him and Emily, so he could continue covering for him at the ball. "Just leaving now. Meet you in the lobby." Jake gave him one querying look as Alex strode toward him before grinning like a Cheshire cat. "I was going to ask how it went, but I don't think I need to. You look like all your Christmases have come at once." "And then some," Alex said, beaming back at him before giving in to temptation and pulling him into a hug. "She's amazing, Jay. Honestly, I can't describe it. She's beautiful, smart, funny, down to earth. She's got the most amazing smile, and her eyes have the sparkle to them, and when she laughs—" All right, I get the picture," Jake laughed. "Seems like it all went great for your first date." Alex nodded. "I have her number, so I'm going to call her tomorrow." "And when exactly are you going to address the whole werewolf/mate bond thing?" Jake brought him back down to earth with a bump of reality. Alex scrubbed his face and ran his fingers through his hair. "Not sure about that exactly. Not the sort of thing I can just casually drop into the conversation, and I want her to believe me. Which means more time together first, so she trusts me and knows I'm for real. But I don't want to leave it too long because then it feels like lying to her." Jake shrugged. "Yep, quite a conundrum. Thanks, you're really great with the advice." Jake grinned. "I'm just glad I didn't have to deal with any of this when I met Jess. Eye contact, instant connection, mate bond, boom, done." "So romantic," Alex muttered. "I'm sure Jess would appreciate your whole love story being reduced to those few words." Suddenly, Jake looked less certain. "Don't you dare repeat that to her." But Alex just laughed as he walked away toward the elevator. Might just hold on to that nugget for a while. Could come in handy. The following morning, Alex paced around his suite, second-guessing himself again. How early was too early? She was probably still asleep, but maybe it would be good if she woke up and the message was already there. It would show he was thinking about her. He had already spent nearly 40 minutes composing exactly what the message should say, trying to show her he was keen without coming across as creepy keen. He had hardly slept, just lying awake thinking about her. And when he did eventually pass out, his dreams had been all about her too. Deciding to be decisive, he pressed send before he could change his mind. Glancing at the clock and seeing 7:53 a.m., he suddenly became certain it was way too early. Damn it. Now there was nothing to do but wait. Jake wouldn't be up for hours yet, as their first meetings weren't scheduled until after lunch on the first day, because of the ball. Alex tried to distract himself with paperwork, then a workout on the treadmill in the corner. When that didn't work, he plugged in his iPod and attempted to read a book. Finally, at 8:36 a.m., the screen of his phone lit up, and he practically dove across the room to get it. "Good morning, beautiful. I hope you slept well. What are your plans for the day? I would love to see you. Alex, good morning to you too. The bride and groom are doing last-minute wedding prep, so I'm actually fairly free today. Would love to see you too. M." Alex punched the air in excitement before quickly typing back. "Do you want to meet up for breakfast? I know a great place." "Sure. Shall we meet in the foyer at like 9:30? Perfect smiley face. He was on the phone instantly to arrange everything before glancing once more at the clock. He had less than 35 minutes to get ready for his date. Jumping in the shower to wash off his workout sweat, it was a mad rush to dry his hair and get dressed, but at least he didn't really have time to agonize over his wardrobe choice, settling for a simple shorts and t-shirt combo. When he got down to the front desk, the flowers he had ordered were already there. So he took them and went to hover in the middle of the lobby where Emily wouldn't be able to miss him. Wearing a black flowery jumpsuit, hair loose, and no makeup, she was effortlessly stunning. She took his breath away, and for a moment he forgot how to speak. He quickly offered up the flowers, feeling a small swell of pride as her face lit up. "That's so sweet, thank you. I've never had flowers on a first date before. Technically, this is our second date, because last night was officially the best first date I've ever had. So it has to count." A shy grin and light blush spread across her face, and Alex couldn't help but grin back at her. "Good morning, by the way," he said, leaning in to give her a quick kiss on the cheek, subtly breathing in her scent at the same time. "You look stunning. Are you ready to go?" Chapter 6. Alex took Emily's hand, threading his fingers through hers, and led her back towards the lift. She had thought maybe her slightly drunken mind had exaggerated his beauty the night before, but in the cold morning light she decided she might have underestimated it. As he gently pulled her into the lift and pressed the button for the top floor, she couldn't stop staring. He tugged her a little closer, wrapping his free arm around her waist so that they were standing chest to chest. Little buzzes of electricity flowed across her body, and her breathing became just a little shallow. Neither of them said anything. They just drank each other in. She kept having to remind herself that she had only met this man the night before, because although she had never believed in love at first sight, she could feel herself falling damn hard, and it was kind of scary. The lift opened out onto the roof of the hotel, but it had been turned into a stunning flower garden, with palm trees and blooms everywhere. Emily couldn't help but gasp at the sight. "Wow, I had no idea this was even up here. This is incredible." Alex smiled at her reaction. "I'm glad you like it. We had it added earlier this year. I'm pretty pleased with it." "Wait, when you said last night that you own some hotels, you meant this hotel?" she asked, gawping at him. His nod made her suddenly realize that Alex must be incredibly rich. She hadn't realized that the night before, though now that she thought about it, he had said he ran several successful businesses. Still holding her hand, he led her through the garden until they reached a gazebo set up with a table and chairs. He pulled out her seat for her before moving his chair slightly closer, but he didn't sit down. Instead, he headed over to a side table. "What can I get you to drink? Orange juice, apple, coffee, tea?" "Tea, please," she said with a smile. There was something incredibly endearing about him getting her drink for her. "Of course. Now help me out here. I'm not used to making tea." "Oh, I can do it," Emily offered, jumping up to help, but he quickly shook his head. "Just talk me through it. I need to learn how to do it, so I know for future." And with that simple sentence, Emily knew she was a goner. The fact that he wanted to learn how to make her tea for her because he saw it being a regular thing in the future was so unexpectedly sweet. "Right. Well, you'll need to boil the water. Put the tea bag in the cup first, and then pour the water over it." "What sort of tea bag?" he asked, turning around with an entire selection tray open. She grinned. English breakfast tea. Right, that would make sense, he said, scanning the tea selection until he found the right one, then continued following her instructions. Now, let it brew for a few minutes, give it a stir, and then take the tea bag out. Then add some milk, not too much though, please. A few minutes later, she was presented with the perfect cup of tea and an incredibly proud Alex. She took a small sip before grinning back at him. Nailed it. He laughed. Phew, first test passed. Are there any other English breakfast customs I need to learn? Oh, there's plenty, but tea making is definitely the most important. Are there any American traditions I should be following? Well, there's ye old Pop-Tart, which is an American breakfast staple, but I'm trying to show off the best of my country here, so maybe we'll leave that for now. Emily thought her face might be broken. Her cheeks were starting to hurt, but she hadn't stopped smiling and laughing for several hours now, so it was no wonder. Opposite her, Alex was crying with laughter as she came to the end of her story about falling into the touching tank at the London Aquarium just the year before. It was so embarrassing, but totally not my fault, she protested, while Alex wiped tears from his face. Man, I wish I'd been there. Actually, I wish you'd been there too. You would have caught me instead of just watching it all happen like Mandy did. Finally done laughing, Alex continued to smile but nodded at her. You're right, I would have caught you. I promise I'll always be there to catch you from now on. Suddenly, the conversation shifted from lighthearted to serious in a second, but looking into his eyes, Emily knew he meant it. Whatever this was between them, he felt it too. He slowly leaned forward and took her hand, drawing her towards him. His eyes flicked down to her lips and then back up to meet hers. There was a moment of hesitation before he closed the gap and gently pressed his lips to hers. If she had thought there were sparks before, it was bonfire night now, with fireworks exploding everywhere. Her whole body lit up with energy as she leaned further into Alex, not wanting the kiss to end. He tentatively opened his mouth and gently caressed her lips with his tongue, asking for permission. Instantly, she allowed him access, their tongues coming together in the most magical kiss of her life. He pulled away the smallest amount, resting his forehead against hers, and muttered the same words she was thinking over and over again. Wow. Unable to speak, she simply nodded in agreement. He smiled brightly before leaning back in again. But after a few more minutes of heaven, they were interrupted by his phone ringing on the table beside them. He groaned in frustration, but pulled back to answer it anyway. I'm really sorry. He took the call briefly, giving a simple yes, and I'll be there in 5 minutes before hanging up. I'm so sorry, I really don't want to leave, but I have a meeting with another alpha which I really can't miss. It's okay. Thank you for breakfast. It was amazing. Best second date ever, he agreed. Would you think I'm an incredibly keen sado if I ask you if we can have dinner tonight for our third date? 2 dates in 1 day, she laughed. I can live with it. He beamed, then leaned back in for another long kiss. It was only as Emily got back to her hotel room that she realized he had used the word alpha. What a weird way of saying another CEO or businessman. Chapter 7. Alex could hardly focus. How did anyone manage to get any work done when they were in the first throes of love? His mind and heart were far away with Emily, and he hadn't the faintest idea what Alpha Ray was currently saying. A nudge from Jake beside him made him shift in his seat and attempt to refocus. Rain sat next to her father, flicking her hair in an irritating manner and trying to catch Alex's eye. But while yesterday that might have annoyed him, today he was in a blissful bubble where nothing could spoil his mood. Increase the revenue for both our packs whilst weakening our rivals. Of course your pack would be enormously strengthened by Rain here, and our closer alliance could expand to dominate the whole of North America as we move into both Canada and Mexico. I even predict possibilities in South America. Alpha Ray gave him a wink. Alex frowned slightly. Whatever he had missed while daydreaming sounded significant, and none of it appealed to him. Words like dominate made him uneasy, and expanding sounded more like invading to his mind. His pack was already the largest and strongest. There was no need to expand. And when Alpha Ray spoke of rivals, he meant his own, not Alex's. Alex had already built alliances with every pack in North America. Sounds great, Pa, Rain purred in her sweet but insincere voice. Even without his own misgivings, Rain's approval would have been enough reason to refuse. Anything that woman wanted usually meant trouble for others. And what was that about his pack being strengthened by her? Alex glanced at Jake, who raised his eyebrows and gave a slight shake of the head before mind-linking. Hoping you were paying enough attention to realize these two are out of line and were not agreeing to anything they just said. Agreed. Just fill in some of the blanks for me, Rain. Alex replied mentally. Jake smirked. Your new Luna, obviously. The thought almost made Alex choke, and his wolf, Firens, growled in anger. Turning back to Alpha Ray, Alex tried to be diplomatic. I'm sorry, Alpha Ray, but I cannot agree to your suggestions. My focus is on strengthening and taking care of my pack without expanding territories. It's simply not necessary. Our revenue has nearly doubled in the last year alone. I see no real benefit for us. I'm happy to continue our current alliance, ensuring peace between our packs. Matching scowls appeared on both Alpha Ray's and Rain's faces. Rain casually reached over to pinch her father's arm. Perhaps we can leave some of the other elements for now and discuss them later, Alpha Ray said. But you must see the issue of a Luna is no longer something you can ignore. Your pack needs one. It has been too long without a queen, and my Rain would fill the role perfectly. There is no better choice, and you know it. Rain rose from her seat and strutted toward him, perching on the edge of the table in front of him. She reached out with a long, painted nail toward his thigh, but he pulled back sharply. She pouted. You know I'd take care of you, Alex, she said in a voice clearly intended to be alluring. I promised all your needs would be met. Alex felt nothing but distaste. Even if he hadn't met Emily, the display would have been unappealing. The thought of Emily caused a small smile to form. Little did Rain know, he had already found his Luna. He wanted to tell them, to shout it from the rooftops, that he had found her. But he couldn't, not yet. Emily didn't know about them, and until the mate bond was complete, speaking out would put her in danger. Rain, I have been very clear in the past. I intend to wait for my true mate. My feelings haven't changed. Only my true soulmate will be Luna of the Silver Moon Pack. Rain's scowl deepened, and her voice turned from sugary to demanding. You're being foolish. You'll never find your mate. She doesn't exist. You have to choose me. I'm meant to be the Luna of the Silver Moon Pack. Tell him, Pa. Alpha Ray's tone matched hers in irritation. You're making a mistake. How long will you wait? There are plenty of others who want my daughter. If you're not careful, you'll lose her. Well, if there are plenty of others, then you can't be too disappointed with my answer. Alex smiled, rising to indicate the meeting was over. A pleasure as always, Alpha Ray. But I have a meeting with Alpha Norris. Without another glance, he strolled from the room, pulling out his phone. How's your day going? I miss your beautiful face. These meetings are mind-numbingly boring, and all I can think about is you. XX. 2 minutes later, a picture came through. Emily lying on a sun lounger in a bikini, holding up a frozen cocktail with a big grin. Alex groaned in frustration, earning a questioning look from Jake, who walked beside him. Emily's torturing me, Alex said, showing him the picture. Jake laughed. Only 3 more meetings to get through. Alex groaned again, quickly replying to Emily as they stepped into the next meeting room, where Alpha Norris and his beta were already waiting. Several more hours of tedium awaited before he could see her again. Chapter 8. Emily was wearing a simple little black dress, yet she still managed to take Alex's breath away as she approached with a shy smile. He didn't hesitate, wrapping his arms around her and pulling her close, pressing his lips to hers. It had been hours, and Firens was almost as eager for the contact as Alex was. She instantly responded, and for several minutes, they kissed like teenagers in the middle of the hotel lobby. Eventually, she pulled away, breathless. Well, that's a nice welcome, she said. Alex grinned down at her. I missed you. I missed you too. Her words were like music to his ears. He knew she didn't feel the bond the same way he did, but she definitely felt something. Threading his fingers through hers, he led the way toward the exit. Just before they moved through the doors, Alex sensed they were being watched. His gaze swept the area and landed on Rain, standing just to their left and glaring at Emily. Firens let out a growl in Alex's mind, and he instantly stepped around Emily, putting himself between them. Rain gave him an angry glance before turning and walking away. Emily didn't notice any of this, so Alex shook off his unease and decided to deal with Rain later. He had booked them a table at the Venetian, along with a gondola ride. Cheesy, perhaps, but Emily loved every moment of it. Afterward, she insisted they cross over to watch the pirate show outside Treasure Island and then the fountains at the Bellagio. Her eyes sparkled with happiness as they stood together, watching the water dance in time to the music. Just when Alex thought he couldn't be happier, Emily would squeeze his hand or smile at him, and his joy climbed even higher. As the show ended, she looked up at him, and his heart felt as though it might burst. Less than 2 days together, and he was already head over heels in love. Bending down to kiss her, he felt her arms wrap around his neck, pulling him closer. A rush of warmth spread through him, as if he were both flying and melting at once. "This is insane," she murmured against his lips. "How I feel when I'm with you." Alex sighed in contentment, keeping their foreheads pressed together. "It's incredible. I don't want to scare you away by being too intense or moving too fast, but this us." She nodded softly, not needing him to finish. He was overwhelmed by the knowledge that she felt the connection too. "You have your own room here, right?" "I'm sharing with Kim," she said with a shy smile, letting the meaning linger in the air. For a second, Alex blinked in surprise. Then he scooped her up, making her laugh as she wrapped her legs around his waist and carried her toward their hotel. Inside his suite, a brief flicker of nervousness crossed his mind as Emily looked around with curiosity. "Do you want a drink?" he asked to fill the silence. "I'm good," she murmured, shaking her head. He stepped forward, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear and lightly tracing her cheek. "You're the most stunning person. I can't believe how lucky I got." She rose onto her tiptoes and kissed him gently. "I feel the same. I don't quite understand it, this pull, this link, but I know it's something special and I'd be foolish to let it go." "I have no intention of ever letting this go," he said softly. They spent the rest of the night sharing slow, tender moments, each touch and look deepening the bond between them. Every laugh, every whispered word, every lingering kiss seemed to stitch them closer together. They moved with unhurried care, learning each other's rhythms, completely absorbed in the connection they were building. Eventually, they lay side by side, staring into each other's eyes just as they had all night. Alex's thoughts were filled with nothing but her. How he wanted to protect her, love her, and make her happy for the rest of their lives. As Emily's eyes slowly closed and she drifted into sleep, Alex gently brushed her hair from her face. Watching her breathe peacefully, he made a silent promise to always cherish her. Firens purred in agreement, the wolf's vow as strong as his own, as they held her close and drifted into a blissful sleep. Chapter 9. As Alex began to stir, he felt something stroking gently down his face and along his jaw. Slowly opening his eyes, he caught surprise and then guilt flashing across Emily's face as she quickly withdrew her hand. "Sorry," she whispered. "I didn't mean to wake you." He caught her hand and placed it back on his cheek. "I'm yours to touch and look at as much as you want. I don't mind being woken up if it's by you." She gave him her shy, uncertain smile but resumed gently stroking his morning stubble, and Firens purred with contentment inside his mind. Alex reached over to touch her in return, running his fingers lightly up and down her arm. Inwardly, he wondered how in the world he was going to bring up the subject of Firens and wolves. Just as he was about to ask her plans for the day, the sound of a phone alarm rang from the next room. "Oh, that's mine," Emily said, leaping up and out of bed to get it. Her sudden absence left him feeling empty, though he admittedly enjoyed the view when she returned, tapping away at her phone. Only when she noticed his amused grin did she realize she was still stark naked. "Oh my goodness," she exclaimed, throwing herself back under the sheets. Alex laughed loudly. "Don't mind me," he teased. "I'm not complaining at all." She peeked her head out from the covers and stuck her tongue out at him, which only made him laugh harder. Her rosy cheeks were too tempting to resist, so he leaned in to kiss them both before finding her lips. "Good morning, beautiful." She huffed, but smiled back until another beep from her phone caught her attention. "I have to go. We've got a full day of activities planned, and I need to go back to my room to change." "What are these wild hen do activities?" "This morning we're taking a helicopter ride to the Grand Canyon," she said, eyes lighting with excitement. "Then we're going quad biking in the desert, and tonight we're going to see Cirque du Soleil." "Sounds awesome," Alex replied, trying to match her enthusiasm, though Firen's protective instincts were already weighing the dangers of helicopters and quad bikes. "Be careful though, okay? I want you back in one piece." She laughed. "All right." She leaned over to give him a quick kiss before jumping out of bed, once more and slipping back into last night's clothes. Alex pulled on a pair of boxers and followed her to the door, reluctant to let her go, but unwilling to hold her back from her fun. "Message me so I know you're alive," he murmured against her ear as they hugged. "I'll be stuck in meetings all day but thinking of you." With one last smile, she disappeared out the door. He watched her until she reached the elevator before closing the door and leaning back against it with a sigh. Thinking about the night before, he slid down the door with a grin stretching ear to ear. Life couldn't get much better than this. True to her word, Emily sent him pictures throughout the day. The first was of her standing beside a helicopter, the next a short video of them taking off. 50 minutes later came another image, Emily standing in the middle of the Grand Canyon, arms spread wide, smiling brightly, though far too close to the edge for Alex's liking. He took deep breaths, reassuring himself that she clearly hadn't fallen into the ravine if she'd sent the picture. Over an hour later, the next photo arrived, Emily in biker gear, giving him a thumbs up from atop a quad bike. A following video didn't show her face, only the sound of her screams and whoops of excitement as the bike beneath her raced over desert sand. His protective instincts kicked in again. Should she really be filming while driving? He forced himself to breathe. She was having fun. Almost another hour of tense waiting passed before the next image brought relief. Emily was back in her hotel room, showing off her evening outfit, a sparkling silver dress that reached mid-thigh. She looked stunning, and knowing she was back in the same hotel eased his mind more than he'd realized. Not wanting to return to his empty suite, Alex convinced Jake to join him at a new steakhouse for dinner. They were just tucking into their meals when their pleasant evening was interrupted by the sight of Rain and Alpha Ray entering the restaurant. The moment Rain spotted him, she sauntered over. "Who was she then?" "That woman you were with last night." A growl rumbled from Alex before his hand was at her throat, pressing her against the wall before he even registered the movement. Loosening his grip slightly, he made sure his anger was clear. "Don't ever talk about her like that again." Surprise, then anger, crossed her face. His reaction had given her exactly what she wanted. Confirmation that Emily was important to him. Without another word, Rain shoved him off and stormed back to her father, whispering in his ear. The glances Alpha Ray cast Alex's way made it clear who they were discussing, but Alex's greater concern was whether Emily had now been drawn into that conversation. Jake eyed him with concern. "You okay?" "Sorry," Alex muttered, sitting back down and running his hands over his face and through his hair. "She saw me with Emily last night. I don't want her anywhere near her." "Understood," Jake replied seriously. "Things with you and Emily are good though, right? I don't know how it works with humans, but she sure seems like she's feeling the effects of the bond too." "Yeah, I think so. Everything feels great, apart from the fact that I still need to tell her I'm a werewolf. My advice," Jake said, "do it quick. She's going to be in shock no matter when you tell her, so you might as well get it over with." That way you can move forward with everything out in the open. And with Rain being the pain she is, you know she's going to try to stir something. Alex nodded regretfully. She's having a fun night with her friends right now, so I'll figure out how to tell her tomorrow. I really don't know how it's going to go down. The moon goddess wouldn't have sent her to you if she couldn't handle it, Jake reminded him. That thought gave Alex some comfort. He had waited 14 years for his mate, and the moon goddess wouldn't bring her to him only to take her away again after 2 days. With Emily still on his mind, Alex gave Jake a nod and returned to his steak with renewed appetite. Chapter 10. Jake and Alex had moved on to the Oasis bar after finishing their steak, eager to get away from Rain and Alpha Ray, who were still in the restaurant when they left. Secretly, Alex was hoping Emily and her friends would be there, but it seemed they had chosen a different club. He was trying not to smother her when she was out. Even though it had been nearly 2 hours since her last message, and Firens was getting restless, just as Alex was debating whether to send a quick having fun message, his phone lit up with an incoming video call. He answered instantly to see Emily smiling and dancing. "Hey Alex, where are you?" "I miss you," she shouted over the techno beat, still swaying to the music around her. He couldn't help but smile back. She'd clearly had a few drinks. Suddenly, one of her friends appeared in view. "Oh look, it's Em's boyfriend." "Hey, Mr. the best she's ever had." Emily squealed in protest, whipping the phone back around and pushing her friend away. "Shut up, ignore her. She's drunk. She doesn't know what she's saying." But nothing could wipe the grin from Alex's face, not only because Emily's friend had called him her boyfriend, but also because she claimed he was the best she'd ever had. "Looks like you're having fun," he said, though she just looked at the screen in confusion. "What?" she yelled. "I can't hear you." "There's music." She gestured around her. As she did, a man appeared behind her and seemed to start dancing far too close. Instantly, Alex's hands clenched into fists, tension locking his shoulders. Emily frowned at the man, shook her head, and pushed him away. Trying to keep his temper in check, Alex focused on the small screen in his hand to see whether the man had backed off and Emily was all right. The view shifted before Emily's face reappeared. "Hold on, I'm just going outside. I can't hear you," she yelled, moving away from the dance floor and through an exit. The music cut off abruptly, and Emily seemed to relax as she stepped into an empty alleyway outside the club. "That's better. It was too crowded in there." "Where are you? Are you okay? Was that guy bothering you?" Alex asked, feeling Jake's hand on his arm, a silent reminder to stay calm. "I'm fine, he's gone. We're at Omnia at Caesars. It's awesome. Where are you?" "I'm at Oasis with Jake." "All right. Do you fancy joining us?" Alex was out of his seat before she'd even finished the sentence. "Hell yeah, I'll be there in 10. She laughed loudly, but then suddenly stopped, distracted by something out of view of the camera. Emily? Are you okay? What's going on?" She didn't answer, still frozen in shock, her eyes fixed on something behind the phone. She took a cautious step backward, fear flickering in her gaze. "Alex," she said quietly, stepping back again. She reached behind her for the door she'd just come through, but it had swung shut and there was no handle on the outside. Fear fully broke across her face, and then the phone tumbled as her scream rang out. Panic surged through Alex, and he bolted with Jake right behind him. They raced through Oasis and the hotel lobby, Alex practically sprinting down the strip. He still had the phone in hand, but the screen was black and silent. Avoiding the front entrance, he darted down the side, toward the back, knowing Emily had taken a fire exit to escape the noise. Rounding the corner, his eyes locked on the sight before him. Emily pressed against a wall with 3 werewolves snarling in front of her. With an angry growl, Alex let Firens loose, shifting in midair as he charged. Jake shifted behind him, covering the left flank. Alex snapped at the nearest wolf and slashed with his front claws, twisting his body, so he now stood between Emily and her attackers. At the sight of an enraged Alpha and Beta, the 3 smaller wolves didn't attempt to fight. They bolted down the alley. Jake immediately gave chase, mind-linking Alex that he'd handle it and Alex should stay with Emily. Turning quickly to her, Alex scanned for any signs of injury. She was still trembling, fear etched into every movement. As he took a step toward her to comfort her, he understood the source of that fear. He was still in his wolf form. Oh no. Chapter 11. Emily's thoughts raced. I'm gonna die. The same fear pounded in her mind as she stared at the huge beast in front of her. She thought of Alex and how cruel it was that they had only just met, and now she might never see him again. She didn't know where the other 4 creatures had run off to, but the one left behind was by far the biggest of them all. With a whimper, she slid down the wall, tears streaming down her cheeks as the creature towered above her. Then it did the strangest thing. Instead of attacking, it let out a soft whimper of its own before lying down in front of her, its massive head resting on its paws as it looked at her with sorrowful eyes. It was as if it were trying to apologize. Emily stared at it, dumbfounded. Was it not going to hurt her? For a long moment, they simply watched each other. She cautiously tried to move, wondering if it might let her go, but the instant she did, its head shot up and she quickly sank back down. Slowly, almost as if trying not to scare her, the giant wolf shuffled forward slightly. When she didn't react, it did so again, never breaking eye contact. At a snail's pace, it leaned forward and gently licked her hand. She jerked back automatically, her heart rate spiking once more. The animal gave a small whine at her retreat. It was unbelievable. This couldn't actually be happening. Still unsure but curious, she slowly opened her hand again, and the animal licked it once more. Nudging forward a little further, the beast soon had its head resting in her lap. Hesitantly, Emily began stroking the black fur on top of its head, and a deep, vibrating sound rumbled from the creature, almost like a giant cat purring. She thought it liked her. Breathing a little easier now, she continued running her fingers through its fur, though her mind spun with the question of what to do next. She didn't think this animal meant to harm her, but she couldn't stay here forever. A noise at the end of the alley made her jump in fear again, and her new protector rose, standing over her in a defensive stance. One of the other creatures had returned, but from the way her wolf relaxed, this was friend, not foe. The 2 animals looked at each other, as if engaged in a silent conversation. Then, with a sigh, her protector turned back toward her, licked her face tenderly, and took 2 steps back. Emily thought it was letting her go, until her eyes widened in disbelief. The creature's body began to shift and crack, for melting back into skin, and in less than 2 seconds, where the wolf had stood was now a very naked Alex, his expression sheepish and his eyes full of concern. Before she could even process what had happened, darkness descended, and she felt herself fainting into Alex's arms. When Emily stirred again, she was stretching out across soft sheets, Alex's warm body beside her. Smiling, she wrapped her arms around him, and he did the same. I think someone may have spiked my drink last night because I had the weirdest dream, she murmured, snuggling closer. Alex pulled her tighter, kissed her forehead, and pressed his nose into her hair, inhaling deeply. He often did that. She suspected he liked the way her hair smelled. But then he sat up and looked at her, his expression suddenly serious. Baby, that wasn't a dream. We've got a lot to talk about, and I have a lot to explain. I know you're going to have a ton of questions. Just promise to hear me out and try not to freak out. Everything's going to be okay, I promise, but I know it's going to seem crazy. I just need you to trust me and believe me, okay? Emily stared at him for a moment before slowly sitting up. His nervousness was contagious. What are you talking about? Last night wasn't a dream. You were attacked by 3 unknown werewolves and then rescued by me and Jake, he hesitated before adding, in our wolf forms. Understanding did not dawn. Instead, Emily glanced around, searching for hidden cameras. You know, scaring the life out of a woman in an alley at night really isn't a funny prank. Is this for some kind of show? Because you seriously need to rethink your stunts. Alex sighed, rubbing his face. Please. Don't please me, she said, sliding out of bed, relieved to see she was at least clothed, though it was in Alex's boxers and one of his t-shirts. Seriously, it's not funny. I was terrified. He stood slowly, hands raised in a calming gesture. Please, don't freak out, okay? Then right before her eyes, Alex began to shift again, limbs cracking for sprouting, and within seconds, the huge wolf stood before her once more. She realized now his fur wasn't black, but dark brown, the exact shade of his curly hair. Just like the night before, the towering creature slowly lowered himself to the ground in a non-threatening posture. Emily shook her head in disbelief. How'd you do that? By the power of the moon goddess, said a voice behind her. She yelped, stumbling backward and landing hard on the other side of the bed. Sorry, Jake said quickly, hurrying forward to help her. But Alex, now human again, had already rushed to her side. What the heck, Jake? Alex growled. Emily instinctively took Alex's hand, then quickly let go as the memory of what she had seen came back. Sorry, I didn't mean to scare her, Jake said apologetically. You couldn't have knocked or something, Alex muttered. Her gaze bounced between them, still trying to make sense of what she had witnessed. She scanned the room again, searching for an explanation. So is it a projector? Or lasers? Or something, she asked, moving to Alex's side of the bed to check for trapdoors or costumes. Jake laughed. Really? A projector? You're smarter than that. Alex's low growl cut Jake off. I know it's a lot to take in, and we're here to answer your questions. But I swear to you this is real. I'm a werewolf, Jake is too, and so are thousands of others around the world. We live alongside humans without your knowledge. I know it seems crazy, but those novels you've read, Twilight and the rest, while not completely true, have some basis in reality. Emily shook her head. You know, I saw Harry Potter and the Cursed Child last year, and they did things that seem unbelievable too. Then I read an article explaining how they did it all. Alex ran a frustrated hand through his hair. Okay, so you don't believe us yet, but just pretend for a moment that it's true, that you believe me. Give me a chance to explain, even if you think I'm making it all up. His eyes pleaded with her, and despite her disbelief, she didn't think he was crazy, and she didn't feel afraid of him. Slowly, she nodded. Okay, you can talk, and I'll listen. I'm not saying I believe you, but I'll listen. But for the love of God, can someone get me a cup of tea first? Chapter 12. Emily sat on the sofa in front of Alex, sipping her tea expectantly while he tried to figure out how to begin. Jake had left to deal with their morning meetings, ones Alex knew he couldn't attend. Bringing Emily to terms with their world was far more important, and he felt as though he was standing on a knife's edge. On one side lay acceptance and a future with Emily as his Luna. On the other lay a life without her if he couldn't convince her he wasn't crazy and that he was telling the truth. Okay, so I've never had to do this before, so bear with me. If you have questions, just ask, all right? I'll do my best to answer them all as honestly as I can, Alex said. Emily simply raised her eyebrows and waited. Right, here goes. Werewolves have been around for thousands of years, as far as we can tell. The very beginning of our kind is told to us as stories when we're kids, kind of like a fairy tale, so I can't vouch for their complete accuracy. This is only what I was told. Thousands of years ago, a young boy lost in the woods was taken in by a family of wolves. He lived and grew with them for many years in the forest. But when he became a man, he rediscovered the human town he came from, not wanting to lose his wolf family. The young man prayed to the gods for a way to live safely and peacefully with both kinds. The moon goddess granted his wish, and the first werewolf was born, able to shift between two forms at will. Since then, the moon goddess has allowed her gift to be passed from generation to generation, and our kind has grown and evolved alongside the human race. Whole werewolf communities have sprung up all over the globe. Some live completely separate from humans, but most live and work with them without humans ever knowing. Alex glanced at Emily to gauge her reaction, but her expression remained unreadable. Like I said, it's a fairy tale version of our beginnings. He cleared his throat nervously and continued. I'm an alpha. That's the leader of a werewolf pack, usually a male, but not always. My pack is called the Silver Moon Pack, and we're the largest in North America. Jake is my beta, my second in command. How many of you are there? Emily asked suddenly. Alex felt a flicker of excitement that she was showing curiosity. In my pack, there are over 15,000 of us. Emily's eyes widened in surprise. The next largest pack is the Red River Pack, with just under 9,000, he added with a touch of pride. Are there werewolves in England? Yes, Alex replied with a gentle smile. The largest is the New Forest Pack. I think they have around 6,000 members, but I've never been to England to confirm. I've met a number of their members at various world events, though. When Emily didn't ask more questions, Alex carried on. Although we share a mind and body, our wolves are still separate spirits. It's difficult to explain, but Firen's, my wolf, is always inside me. I can talk to him and feel his emotions, but when I'm in human form, I have total control. The opposite is true when I shift into wolf form. I'm still there in his mind and we can communicate, but Firen's has control. Isn't that weird? Someone else controlling your body while your mind is still there, she asked. Not really. It's the way it's always been. And we're not two competing souls. Our wants, needs, and desires are completely aligned. We just have different personalities, so we let the other take over when their strength is required. Like last night, in order to protect you, I needed Firen's physical strength. She nodded slowly. What happened last night exactly? I'm guessing the wolf you showed up with was Jake. But who were those other 3 wolves? They were members of your pack. Alex shook his head, trying not to clench his fists at the memory of the rogues who had attacked Emily. I don't know. Jake couldn't catch them after they ran. I didn't recognize any of their scents, so they're not wolves I've met before. Scents? You could smell them, she asked, as though piecing things together. Is scent a big thing for wolves? I've noticed you like to smell me a lot. He smiled. Yeah, scent is a big thing. Your scent in particular, for me, because he hesitated, knowing the next part was about them. You smell like heaven on earth to me because you're my mate. There was a pause, but she didn't react. He explained further. Mate as in soulmate, you're my soulmate. Every wolf is paired with another, 2 halves of the same whole. Most wolves find their mate at 18, but I didn't. I waited 14 years for you. His voice softened at the end. You think we're soulmates? She asked quietly. I know we are. From the moment I first picked up your scent, it's like love at first sight, only stronger. The second I saw you, there was an unbreakable bond, a connection of love and desire, need and want. I know you feel it too, even if it's not the same. For me, it's the purest love. You're my everything, but I'm not a wolf. You said soulmates are 2 wolves paired together. Usually, yes, but not always. It's rare, but wolves can be paired with humans too. And you think you're paired with me? She asked, suddenly getting to her feet and pacing. I know it's a lot to take in, Alex began, but she held up a hand for him to stop. He stayed quiet, waiting as Firen's paced in his mind. Finally, Emily turned back with a decisive look in her eyes and held out her hand. Come with me. Alex took her hand immediately and followed her out the door. Where are we going? She didn't answer, leading him through winding corridors, down several flights of stairs, and past more rooms until they reached a set of doors that opened into an unused conference room. She looked around, nodded to herself, then turned back to him. Do it again. Do what? Turn into your wolf again. Without fully understanding why she brought him there, Alex agreed. Slowly, he pulled off his shirt, then stepped out of his pants. Wolves don't wear clothes. They just rip when I shift, and I wouldn't have anything to change back into. He met her gaze. Ready? Emily took a deep breath and nodded. Alex let Firen's loose. shifting slowly so she could see the process in detail. When the transformation was complete, Fyron stood watching her reaction. A flicker of uncertainty crossed her face, but before tension could take hold, Fyron's lay down, bounced back up like an overgrown puppy, spun in circles chasing his tail, and rolled across the floor. "What are you doing?" Alex asked in his mind. "Stop acting like an idiot." But before he could stop him, Emily let out a small giggle. Alex, through Fyron's, watched her smile grow. Fyron's tail wagged furiously, and he repeated the playful display before flopping down again. Slowly, Emily stepped forward with one hand extended, cautious but curious. She gently patted Fyron's head. He purred and licked her hand encouragingly. Smiling wider, she stroked him again. "Hi," she whispered. "It's Fyron's, right? Geez, this is insane." Still, she kept petting him. And just like that, Alex felt the tension drain from him. She was accepting them. He was certain they were going to be okay. And that concludes part 1 of Alex and his Luna's story. The journey is only getting started. Tap the video on your screen now to dive straight into part 2.